Hi and welcome. Today's course will be about PHP. So I figured I'm gonna do a introductory video to PHP and talk about the normal things you do in PHP, like loops, if statements, how to fetch data from the user, aka the browser, how to intercept it, to work with it, and basically it's gonna be the get and the post method. We will also look at some HTML and how to react from PHP on the data the client will send us. So I already installed and set up a small PHP server. It is the same as my other video where I did some MySQLi, communication full CRUD. I still use WAMP, and I have created my index file in my www folder, and I have my browser window I can pull in. It's a totally blank index file, as you see. Nothing in the browser updated and nothing in the file. Just briefly to verify whether I'm in the right file or not, I can write something like hello, save the file, go back to the browser and update and see the word hello. So that is the way you can quickly verify whether you're in the right file, right spot, and the right port. Now this is just a normal web server, so it's just using the port 80 and the local interface, my own machine. So the first thing we're going to look at in PHP, this is going to be a standard course in PHP. I'm not going to use any specific Wild West PHP 8 stuff, just normal introductory PHP. So let's go ahead and look at variables. I'll write variables. So a variable in PHP is created by typing in a $, and we can type a name for it, just like to say name equal to, and then type my name inside of it and put a semicolon after it, and then you have a variable with the name inside of it. Alright, so in PHP there are different ways you can surround your values. You can either do it with a double, you can call it citations, or you can do it by, let me just show a different way of doing it. You can use single quotations, I don't know what you call it, like plings or something I cannot pronounce. Anyways, this is the different ways you can do in PHP, and sometimes when you need to output to the HTML part, the browser, you need to mix them around. And let me just pretty easy to show you what this is all about. So when you do an echo statement in PHP, just like that, you write something like hello, and you go to the browser and you update it, you will see the word hello. So if you want to format that with some HTML, then well, it's not that hard. You can just type, let's say, h1 tag, and then you go into the same browser window once again, update it, and now it's a h1 tag. Alright, so what if you wanted, let's say, the value of the name variable inside the echo statement to the browser? Well, the easy way of doing it is, of course, just by pressing space after the citation, doing a dot and write dot name, which is a concatenation function in PHP. Basically, it means the dot that you are adding on the value inside the variable, which is going to be Daniel, to the end of this string here, which is going to be appended after the word hello. So if I go to the browser and update, it will be something like that. The reason it's going to be in a new line is because of the formatted HTML rule of the h1 tag. The h1 tag contains something called a new line, which basically means that it fills the whole width of the screen with the height of around, if you can think about it, just imaginary. You can see the white space that I marked over the blue area is a part of the h1 tag, probably part of something called margin from CSS, and also the body section of this HTML page might even have some padding, which is also a part of some rules in HTML and CSS to make visual representation differences on the browser. Now, of course, this is not about HTML and CSS. However, I am going to mention a few things on the run. Alright, so now that we can add values, and we can even do like another dot after it and put parentheses sorry, not princes, but citations. We can do another one with the single citations, and then we can add on the name to variable. These spaces will not be represented in the way you might think about it. We only see one, and that is because in a browser and web, particularly just web for browsers, only one space is meant to be visible. The rest of it has to be injected directly using something called HTML entities. So if you wish to have more spaces, we have 2 spaces here, but we only saw one. I will need to replace this with a non-breaking what is it called, non-breaking space, something like that. And you can see now that, oops, I think that should be the correct way of writing it. Yeah, my bad. So now you see we have 1 there. I'm gonna zoom a bit more. We have 1 space, we have 2 spaces. So the way to create more spaces in web is by injecting the non-breaking, the new line entity. I forgot the short for the NBSP. New break space line, something like that, right? Alright, so now that we are learning a lot of the stuff that will be really convenient to know on the long run, I'm not really talking much about PHP, or are we not? Because all the things that I talk about right now is something that I see early web developers struggle to do, because they learned how to do the loops first and they learned how to do communication with the database, but they never really learned how to work around all the normal small quirky things and how a browser works and how to make the extra spaces. Now I'm gonna try and take all of those quirks along with this course. So now we know how to output some value. We know how to output HTML. We know how to append variables, create a space, and create extra spaces. We can even do more than one. Update the browser and see now we have 1, 2, 3 spaces. Okay. So let's go on with some more interesting stuff. I'm gonna delete this now and go back to the idea where I talked about we can mix in the different signs. So it is possible for you to select the echo. And let's assume that what you want to echo is, let's say, this Daniel, but the signs should also be on the browser. So whenever you output that, let's just say output Daniel, just like that, go back to this browser and update it, you will see like that. But you want the actual output to have the citations around the name Daniel. So you might think, oh, then I just do another pair, and you think, but now the coloring look weird and I don't know what to do. So if you go back to the browser and update, you will see something like this, saying parse error, syntax error, unexpected Daniel with single quotations and t-string expecting this or that and what is going on. Line number 12, and yeah, that's true for this case. And this is one of the particular very interesting errors PHP can output to you. Now that error basically means that your syntax is wrong. Now when you're talking about syntax, it's also the first kind of word after parse error, syntax error. Syntax is how the language is built. So everything go hand in hand by following a rule, and if you break it, then you break the parse mechanism and then you get a syntax error. The syntax for this particular string creation is that you need to have a starting citation and an ending citation. In between that you can have different kind of things. Always goes in pairs. You cannot just inject extra citations. There are ways for you to escape it by putting a I think it's a double backslash in front of it. Let me see. No, is it one? Usually forget these kind of things. Yes, it is 1 backslash in front of it, and then you can go back again and do an extra backslash and say that, well, basically telling the PHP engine that whatever sign is after the backslash is going to be ignored and just presented as normal. So this is one way of doing it. I would say this is the ugliest way of doing it. But in some occasions you need to do it this way because things are mixed in a certain way. you'll know what I mean whenever you start coding and you start to understand how it's connected. Another very interesting way of doing it is like I'm gonna comment this line out and saying like echo, just do double single quotes, sorry, and then do inside of that normal citations and write Daniel and go back to the browser and update it, and you will see that you have exactly the same output, but it looks a lot easier and less different colors switching inside the other colors. Of course, this is a choice, and some people say, oh, I want the top one, other ones say like, I want the bottom one. There's actually a number 3 where you can do it, and this is by saying, what I would like is like, let's say this, then I'm gonna concatenate my stuff to it, and then do it in groups, and this will result in the same. Again, you see I update my browser. Now this is a little different, you know, because you do more signs, you do more typing, you have more text to look at. But I also, well, have seen some web developers saying this looks more clean because you separate stuff, and you can really just see every single part of it without watching too much. Watching on the second solution that I have, revisiting it, it can easily, like, you know, how you can call it, merge together in your eyes or for your eyes, and that will create a lot of confusion. So this is the different ways that at least I'm gonna use in this video for most of the times. If I do something new, well then of course I'm gonna explain that. This is just another part of what I call convenience, things to know whenever you do PHP programming. So let's get on with some of the more interesting part again about variables. So what you could do in PHP is like saying you take the variable name and say dot equal and a space and do, like, let's say a last name, and that could be Bjornsson. Then you end that line off with a semicolon, go back to the browser and update it. And what I forgot is to echo the name variable like this. And now you see that I added some value to an existing variable. This is also very handy to know whenever you're going to do some PHP. Alright, so you probably already get the drift here, that you can do the same kind of rules with the operators as in other languages. You can do that in PHP as well, that you can combine them. Now if you were working, let's say some variables containing numbers, let's just create number 1, another one called number equal to 1, and then you echo out the number variable, and you get the number on the screen. Alright, so what if you then went and set something like number, and then you do the dot as in you want to concatenate the number 2, and then you output that, you get the number 12. Now this is very interesting, because what you're kind of doing is you are adding on another number. You're not really, let's say, doing math, and PHP is a very forgiving language, so if you do these kind of things, you might say, oh, but I kind of expected number 3. Alright, then I would probably suggest for you to write the plus sign, because then you're doing the mathematical functions, and then you can do show the number 3 as you were interested in. Alright, so PHP is a very forgiving language. Alright, so let's create a small loop for now. Let's say a for loop, just like that, and do the normal, and then say the variable I inside of that equal to 0, and you're gonna plus I every time you have a rotation inside of the for loop, and you say as long as I is less than 10, then you echo out the number I, and then you concatenate a HTML break tag in the end by using the normal rules we already talked about. Going to the screen, you'll see that we output the number from 0 to 9. This is how you do loops in PHP. There are other kind of loops you can do, like the while loop, but for now I think it's fine just to work from the for loop, because if you already know a few other languages, this is going to be easy enough for you to understand, because PHP is really equal to Java or C programming or C# and other popular object-oriented languages. Alright, so now that we know how to do a for loop, let's also just quickly do an if statement. So I'm going to create a variable called number equal to 0, and another variable called number2 equal to 1. Then I'm going to create an if statement just like that, and you see it's the same kind of syntax, number equal to number2, and then you write something like echo the two numbers are equal. Go back to the browser and update, and you will see nothing because they are not equal. Then of course you can add the else statement saying the two numbers are not equal. Go back to the browser, update it again, and now you see that the two numbers are not equal. Now, talking about if statements and operators, there are some things about how this work, and I'm going to see if I can trigger it in certain ways. Let's now assume that this is also 0 and both of them are 0. We should expect to see that the numbers are equal. Now, what if I make this as a string? So I say the number is equal to the string, but the sign is the same. In PHP, it's going to tell you that they are equal. And if you're used to another language, let's say Java or something, this is just something you will just, no. This is not correct. But it is correct in PHP. And basically it's because that it kind of ignores that this is a string and this is not. What you could do is creating a third equal sign saying that you are interested in comparing this on an object level. So you're not just only comparing the values, but you're also comparing the object type. And now you're saying, well, they're not equal anymore. So basically this is the way you do it in PHP. If you then, let's say, surround it with the number one, the number variable with citations, and then again ask if they're equal, it will work just as normal as before. Sometimes it is important that you do the three equal signs because you are comparing to a string and not a number, and in some ways this can actually result in security issues in your program or your website if you're doing it wrongly. But all this is not a part of this video. So now that we know how to work with numbers and if statements and for loops and some convenient stuff, let's do a few more things with numbers before we continue. So let's create the echo statement here below and then do some numbers and say, what if we say number divided by number 2. Now some of you might even know what I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to do a division by 0 error, and of course in PHP we have the same issue with math that we cannot do division by 0 because that is impossible. It's an endless operation in computers, so you're getting the value nan and the warning that this is not a good idea. Alright. When talking about exceptions, just to pull the window again, this is of course an exception because you get an error. Now you can catch these kind of things in PHP. Of course, the most easy way is just to say this operation I'm trying to do, I'm gonna wrap that in a try catch with the exception E, and then you do like echo E instead of this and put the echo statement that do the actual illegal math instead of the try. Go back and update the browser, and now you have a small error saying unexpected whoops. So now we're just saying division by 0 like that. So if I remove the echo statement now there and went back to the screen, it's still making the error. And of course I forgot to remove errors, so let me just pretty quickly find this. So when you wanna turn off errors in PHP, you can just put in this in the top. It's gonna be the easy one, and that's wrong. It's gonna be a 0, basically turning off all errors to the screen, so you just get this. Now if I go back to this again and echo it out, let me just see, I created a small error here. And I think the error is that I forgot to put a large E. So let's go back to the screen. No. Let me see. What did I do wrong? Just looking at the other side of the screen, because I think, let's just copy paste this inside of it and say, what if I, no? Interesting. So it kind of wants me to, it kind of accepts this without creating an exception. So this is very interesting. Now I kind of forgot these things about PHP a long time ago, but when you go along and just experience a way with PHP. Now I really want to generate an error of some sort. How can I do that? Let me just, what if I remove this again and go back and say yes, then you have division by 0, which is true. What I really want is the error message outputted to the screen. Alright, so let's just continue without generating the error right now. I just pause the video for a second and try to find some sort of way to trigger this to get to a certain, well, echo to this part here. But since we cannot do that right now, let's just assume that this is bad, and of course division by 0 is a relative bad thing to have in your code, because it can crash your program. So working further with numbers, you can of course say stuff like echo, number minus equal, and deduct from the actual number. So we can say like 1 and then echo the number variable to the screen, and then you see you have the number -1. Alright, so now that we worked with number just a bit and looked at some convenient stuff and removed errors, whatever we can do, I'm gonna go back to a blank and say let's start looking at how we can intercept some values from the browser. So the very first part is by saying that you can have a, let's say, a variable. Let's go call it value equal to get, and the get value, which is coming from the get request from the HTTP protocol, could be stored in a variable name called name, and then we echo out name. Now if you run this code just like this in the browser, you will get some errors saying undefined variable and stuff like that, because you're trying to output a variable called name and I type wrong. So let's just go ahead and say value, of course, and then update it. Then you see you get the correct error, like undefined index. Now pay attention to the importance of typing the right variable name. So what I'm going to do here up in the top, I'm going to add a question mark, name equal to Daniel, and press enter. Now we see the name. So up here I can type stuff, and press enter, and you see it on the browser. This is called a get request, and this is what you get from putting in variables in the URL line. I can also put stuff like HTML, which is gonna be really bad, so I can type h1 tag and the word hello, and then we get something called hello on the screen. This is also what you call HTML injection, because you're injecting HTML. Now what I would really do is I'd say HTML entities, then you wrap that function around the variable called value, go back to the screen and update it, and now you kind of remove the possibilities for people to inject raw HTML into your application, because that can actually create some different kind of things, alterations, visually alterations, just for the actual instance itself, not on the actual code of use. So now that you know how to get to intercept the get value, let's look at how to do it with a post. So let's see underscore post, and let's then create below here a HTML formula. Let's just do that pretty quickly. and I'm gonna create an input field, input, type, text, name of it should be what? Name, of course, so it says equal name name. I know this might look a bit confusing, so let's just call it first name and put this here, so you see the name of this input field is called first name. And then we need a button of the type submit, and the value of the button is what is on the top of it, so the name of the button is like send. And then we need to do like the action is basically the same site we are on, so I'm just gonna leave it blank, and the method is going to be post. So if I go back to the web page and update it, you're gonna see the error again saying undefined index first name, because we created a variable called value, and since the value variable is empty and the variable called first name is not there, it's gonna get an error. So when I go and type Daniel and press enter, we're gonna get that outputted to the screen. And where is my button? I typed input again, so I'm gonna remove this and update. Yeah, now we have the button, so I can go and type Daniel, more data, send, and then we get that outputted to the screen. This is the way in PHP you intercept a post value. Now, we need to get away from the errors. You probably noticed that when I press the button itself, the error is removed. When I refresh the web page, it is back. So this is another thing you might find yourself, oh, but this is working, but you forgot to do this. And users do many different kind of things. Therefore, you need to test for all possible ways for you to refresh the website. Now, when you press the button, you are injecting an empty value, which is going to be put inside of this. So the variable first name does exist because you are submitting the form. When you just refresh the page, you're not submitting any form. You're basically just reloading the front page, and this is where I get the error. An easy way to get out of this is put the what do you call it, the @ sign in front of it and update it, because when you do that, you're basically telling PHP like, we don't really know if the value is there. But that is of course the ugly way of doing it. The more pretty way of doing it is saying like, okay, so I'm gonna put this in if statement, saying if the value of this is some sort populated, and in front of that I'm going to put the function called isSet, which is a PHP function for asking whether this value is set or not. And then I'm going to say if that. Now I'm going to explain what this means just in a tad of time. Let me just go ahead and put this back, update the window. And now you see that you have a new error called undefined variable called value. What you could do now is say like, no reason to output this unless I have the value. So let's just put that inside the if statement, and let be that a part of the design. So I'm gonna update my browser in all certain ways, and I have no errors. Type something in the input field and press enter, and we get that back. Voila. That's pretty easy, okay? So what this basically means is saying like, if the value is set, the variable from the post request first name is set, and there is something inside of it, not just, you know, well, there's something inside of it if you press the button. So this is just a bulletproof way of you to say that, well, if there's something is inside of it and the value exists, well, the variable exists, then we do this code here, and then everything is fine. This is actually the ways in PHP you do web pages. So right now, if you go and watch my MySQLi video using prepared statements, you can begin to build your own web page. You can build your own web page by just watching 2 videos on my channel. So what I kind of didn't say is you can go and go ahead and visit something called Get Bootstrap, which is a wonderful small library for fast responsive websites. And there's a button called Get Started, and from that you can see that what you need to do, inject and, well, not inject, but copy paste inside of your application. This is a starter application, so I can just copy paste all of this template wise, and then I can go ahead and put that in the top of all this and take my HTML formula and put inside of under hello world just there, and then take my PHP code and put it, let's just say, under my HTML formula, just like that. Go back to the browser, go back to localhost, and now we have a small website using Bootstrap. Of course, this is not visually done or anything right now, so let me just go ahead and show you a bit more about Bootstrap. Now you can also go and say, like, I would like to do something about forms, so you go down and pick forms and say overview, and then you can pick different kind of things. I could just copy paste this just to, I want to see what this is all about, go back, paste this form in there, and just, yeah, that's fine, go back again and update the page and say, wow, that's not that bad really. Just zoom out so it's 100%, so you can see that we have very long, and we have something colors and pressing on it, and it gets very nicely done. When I resize this window, these things will follow, and you can see even the hello world text will follow to the side of the window, so this is already beginning to be responsive. In order for you to get even further, you need to go ahead and click the one called layout and look at something called containers, and there you can read about how you work with Bootstrap to create different kind of, you know, containers for your design. I think there is, let's see if we can find a this should be a small starter copy paste code. There we go, the container, the grid stuff. Let's go back to the window again, I mean the code, and say that we put this there, and inside of this we're gonna put the column 1 is gonna be the HTML formula we just copy pasted, and our own HTML formula could be in the next column, whoops, and our PHP code can then be placed inside of the third column, which is where we're gonna do the output. I know this went pretty quick, but this is not a video on HTML, so I hope it's fine. I did it quickly. So go back to the browser and update it, and now you see that you have things test, and it will get there. So if you resize the window, you will see probably what I mean, that things are boop, and you see that they jump. This is what is called adaptive web design. So what I kind of need to do now is to take this hello world stuff and just put it, let's say, on the, well, I'm just gonna remove it totally because it was ugly anyways. So yeah, go back to the browser window and see now we have a web page. There are many other things you can do in Get Bootstrap, but I want to really just showing you is that you can get really fast combined website if you use something like Bootstrap, and you can even go ahead and say, but I want something like a header of some sort, and I'm just trying to find that pretty quickly. I don't exactly remember what the name of it is, but it's all about the class names, so let's see if I can find it. Columns, gotta utilize, breakpoint, containers, let's see. What is the name of it again? Yeah, I kind of forgot that, and it is not that important for this video at all. Alright, so without using too much time, just me scrolling through these kind of things to find something that is not a part of the video, I think it's about time that we ended this video and quickly just did a recap of what we just did. We now know how to create a website intercepting GET requests, POST requests, convenient stuff about PHP, how PHP in general works, and how to work with variables, some operator stuff, some loop stuff, statement stuff, conditional statements, and some other interesting facts that I said along the way. I want to make clear that this video is not a complete walkthrough using PHP. This is more like you want to learn a new language, and this is perfect. I think this is what I wanted to have if I were new and I knew something like, say, Python or Java or C#. I wanted to get along with PHP and start creating websites. This is what I would probably look for if I were in your shoes. So until next time, see you again.